Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Body. We are so excited because we have a guest with us today, and she just happens to be one of our really good friends and one of Anna's clients. So we'd like to introduce you to Minnie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for having me.
We will call you Dr. Minnie, but for this episode, we will just call you Minnie. But in a future episode, we will refer to you as Doctor. But Minnie is a great friend, a fellow competitor with me, and then also one of your clients.
Yeah, welcome, baby. Thank you so much for being here today. Actually, I'm very, very excited for this episode. I know you almost 3 years, and you are an amazing woman, and I'm so glad to be part of your life. So thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you so much again for having me. I appreciate you both.
Yeah, we're so excited because your background, I think, is just pretty phenomenal. Everything that you've accomplished as a woman, I think, is a great example to so many, to us, but also to so many that are watching and listening to us. And, but it didn't come without struggles, your history, right? And I think that now today you're in a place where we all admire you. You've accomplished so much and you're happy. And I would love to walk our audience through just a little bit of your background. And of course, this podcast revolves around health and fitness, and that plays a big part in your life. So I want to talk about like how you've integrated that into your life, given your culture, you know, your family support, how you've gone through all of your education and what you're doing today. But let's start with your background. Tell us a little bit about growing up.
Yeah. So I grew up in Northern California in the Bay Area. I was born in Daly City. My family's in Vallejo, and which is a rural, not rural, suburban type of town. So went to school there. I have one sister, two brothers, very close-knit Punjabi family. So my family's originally from Punjab, India, which is like North India. Yeah. And so we're Sikh is the religion that we grew up in, but my family's not very religious. It's more of a identity for us. So the values are very much about like gender equality and, you know, like allowing everyone to practice who they are. There's no missionary work. And so those are the values that I grew up with, where diversity was accepted, but also there were limits to that, you know, when it comes to who we allow as far as like close friends or who we allow in the home. So my family, like I love them. I love my parents so much. They've been married for 50 years now. And so they grew up like, they raised us very like strict as far as like keeping your friends at school. Like it's great you have friends, but they're at school, and your siblings are your friends. Your cousins are your friends. I have like almost 50 first cousins, and they're all in the Bay Area. So we grew up like with a really big family, a lot of aunts and uncles, especially when my grandparents were alive. Every weekend it was like a party, you know, because it was just like family get together. And so we have like tons of videos and pictures of that time. And so I grew up very like a secure attachment, you know, very like loved and protected and taken care of. And my dad is 7th out of 9 children. So most of my cousins are older. So I was also like one of the younger cousins. So I always felt like taken care of and, you know, like listening to others as well. But part of that also taught me that I have to rely on other people, you know, for like their permission or what it is that they expect of me. So there were a lot of cultural expectations, family expectations on what I should be doing, shouldn't be doing. But again, it was with a lot of love. So I felt like I'm doing it out of respect, not out of fear, if I'm following the rules. So that's, you know, pretty much how I grew up, went to public school, and then and then after that, I guess went to college, went to San Francisco State. Shout out Gators.
Oh, you did?
I was actually just on a panel interview as an alumni, so that was really exciting to like talk to the students about my journey.
Yeah.
But yes, because I did my undergrad in psychology because I didn't know at first like what I wanted to be or what I wanted to like major in, and everyone's like, "Oh, psychology is like super, you know, you can be anything, you know, it's very general." So So
Is it? Is it psychology?
that's what I was told.
I'm like, normally you go to like business or like communications.
Yeah,
for,
but
like,
no one in my family like really went to college. My sister did and my brother. And then, but like most of my cousins, like you, after a certain age, you're expected just to get married. So I was raised more to be a good Indian girl, you know, a good daughter, a good sister. And so those are the values that I grew up with. And so when it came to college time, I knew I wanted to go for my education because I also knew that there was a lot of freedom in education. Like I was allowed to go to the library. I was allowed to go to school. And so that's where I would like find my freedom, you know, like I'm allowed to hang out with my friends if I'm in college or night class, you know, or sometimes you say you have night class or sometimes you say you're going to go to the library, you know, but that was allowed.
Yeah.
So I knew like education and freedom always went hand in hand for me.
Oh, interesting. Did your parents support you going to college, to university?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so they wanted you to pursue higher education, but you still lived at home at this point?
I did.
So you still felt like you still under the umbrella, under the the rules of the household.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so nice to see, right? It's still, it's great the way your family keep the culture, you know, and give you values, because definitely I think is one thing that is missing, you know, people is kind of don't have more this relationship with family and see that is the tradition. I love that.
I love it too, but I think it's so interesting the way that you clinically diagnosed or like observed that you had this like that you feel this need for like approval, you know, and because when you're talking about it, I'm sure us and all the viewers and listeners are thinking like, oh, what a great way to grow up. Like big family, like great dynamic. You like the social aspect of it is amazing. The love, the support. But then there's also like this alternative side to it where you are reliant upon like some really critical, I think, you know.
Oh yeah. So I was like super passive. I was so shy, you know, and my high school friends, if I see them, if I go back home, like they'll know, like I barely spoke in high school or like junior high. Like I was very reserved, super shy. Yeah. Throughout college too. Like I didn't really like, I had friends, but again, like, you know, there were kind of like some distance, because I just felt more comfortable with my own family or other Indian people. Like that was like where I felt the most comfort, but also like you were saying that, you know, like when you're growing up in such a close-knit community, that there's a lot of expectations. Like Indian girls don't do that. They don't dress like that. They don't sit like that. You know, what are you doing? And so going out of social norms was not, you know, even in my peripheral, you know, like I wouldn't even consider it at first. So I went to college, went to San Francisco State and everything, graduated. And then like, what do you do after college? Like everybody is like, well, you get married.
Did you have, before we dive into that, did you have like idea of what you wanted to do after college with your degree, or?
I did. So I actually had some really good professors at San Francisco State, and that's when I felt like I want to be a psychologist. And I fell in love with psychology. I started learning more about like the different theories and different areas that you can go into. So I started volunteering a lot. I was working at a women's shelter, working as a multilingual advocate. So taking women to their doctor's appointments, attorney appointments. They were living in a shelter. They were Indian and South Asian women. And so that was really powerful. And I was teaching them on things like domestic violence and freedom and, you know, like how do you take care of yourself? And a lot of them had young children. They didn't speak the language. So that was a really powerful experience for me. And so I was just volunteering, working. And then what was I'm sorry, you asked something else.
If you had an idea of what you wanted to do after college.
Oh, okay.
Because we're talking about, naturally in your culture, the next thing you do after college, if you go to college, is to get married.
Yeah.
Right?
So then I thought, okay, before I go to grad school, I guess I should get married.
Were you dating anyone?
Keep it as I'm gonna do it.
You're like, I gotta check it off the checklist of expectations. But were you dating somebody at this time?
I wasn't dating anyone when I graduated college, but my first year of college, I was dating somebody. It was my first boyfriend, and we were together about a year and a half, and he actually ended up leaving to have an arranged marriage, like during our relationship. So he went to India. I remember like I was so excited for him. Like, oh, you get to go to India. You're so lucky. And then he came back and he told me I kind of got engaged.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, what do you mean you kind of got engaged? Either you did or you didn't.
Now, is this something that, because I feel like your culture is so tight knit, like, is this something you like that happens that you were aware of, or like happened within your family or within your, like, you know,
not
your
like
circle?
that. You know, usually if somebody's in a relationship, they, you know, they have what we call love marriage, right? So that was like, you know, so I wasn't even considering marriage yet at that time. I was like 19, 20 years old, you know, so I knew I wanted to go to college. And so when he came back and said that, so I was like, okay, you know, you made your decision, but he had a really hard time because he was forced into it. He felt he was forced into it. So it was a lot of like back and forth, you know, for a couple of years. So throughout the rest of my college, I was starting to feel guilty. Like, should I, you know, still go through with this or not, you know? And, but I knew like the way that the family was, and I didn't want us to have to like run away and all of that. My family didn't do anything to me. And I was like, your family just, you know, they've already made their decision for you. So you guys can do what you need to. But it was really hard on him, you know, like he had a hard time letting go. And so I was feeling stuck. So I couldn't move forward either. I felt really stuck for it was at least 2 years. And then finally I graduated college. And then by then he did follow through with his commitment to get married. He moved on. And so I was like, well, I need to get married too. I'm going to go to India too and just get married.
You're like, okay, well, that seems to be the place you could just go and, like, you know,
that was
make
like
it happen.
the norm. Like that's how all of my cousins got married, and my parents had an arranged marriage. So that was like the norm and the expectation again, right?
So it was for your parents to say at some point you're going to head back to India and we're going to find you a spouse.
They didn't say it like that.
Yeah.
It was more like me, honestly. Like they didn't force me, but it was just more like, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do, like in order to be a good person, you know, like that's what I should do.
Sure, makes sense.
And so it was like the matchmaker or the person that we knew, the in-between person, was in the Northern California. We didn't really know that person very well, but he said he had a nephew who's in India. So he took us to India, and then I was really nervous, honestly, about like the whole like interaction and everything. It was a very short visit. I was there for 10 days. And so we met the guy right away, and I thought he was like fine, but again, I was really shy. So I didn't really ask a lot of questions. You know, I think I asked him 2 questions. I asked him, what do you want to do when you come to the States, you know, as far as work? And, you know, like, I think I asked him about his school or something like that, about, you know, where what he studied or something like that.
Was he the same age as you?
He was a year older. And, but then we were in a big restaurant. So like the family's all like around, and again, like it's not like I wasn't allowed to date. So even the first guy that I was dating, it was like my family kind of knew, but it wasn't like out in public.
Yeah.
Amazing to learn about. I mean,
I'm fascinated. I feel like this should be in a movie and not on a podcast. You know, I feel like we
picture the situation.
I know, but I think it's so fascinating. And I actually love the fact that you're like, okay, culturally, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I think this is the right next step. So let's go do it. I just think that's really fascinating to be in like that driver's seat kind of.
Yeah.
And so you go to India and you meet this guy. Did you have any attraction towards him, or is that even a thing? Because it's so like, it's like this.
It wasn't attraction. Like I thought he was good looking, and he said he's an architect, and I was like, okay, well, you know, he can make a good, you know, good career here. He seems fine. And I love India, and he was from the village there. And so part of my thinking was like, oh, we could live part-time there and live part-time in the United States. And it would be so great. Our children can speak our language and grow up close to our culture. So that was me. I was always very attached to our traditions and our cultural, you know, the values. And that was more me. Of all of my siblings, I like my whole room even looks like an Indian museum. Like I have all these, I have all these artifacts, you know, from India in there. And so I was just always attached to my culture, the movies, and so that's where I was, I thought, okay, we can like live part-time there. The village is beautiful. It's all agricultural, very like in sync with nature and animals. And I thought it would be a beautiful life, and I didn't even think about like, what if this goes wrong? Like, because again, I grew up with so much love, and my parents again were very loving, and
That was kind of normal.
yeah,
The experience that you had was so good. So you're like, okay, so that is what feels right for you, right? Like that's what feels right for me. I'm gonna do it. And I'm glad that you did, because to that point, if you had done differently, maybe today you're gonna regret to not have living the experience. And the fact that you went there and you did it, that it was right in your heart.
yeah.
I think it was definitely good, even,
I'm sure
Then
you
you
learned a
work
lot.
on,
Yeah, I'm sure you learned a
Yeah.
lot through the
listen
process.
for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so I think it was like the second day that I was there, they were all asking, well, what do you think? And, I'd only met him for about 4 hours at that time, because it was like a big restaurant. There was like a little, like a fair going on, so we walked around, and I was like, I don't know, like it's a very fast decision. And his uncle, who was again from the States, he like took his arm around me, and he was like, don't worry, Minnie, he's going to treat you like a queen. I'll guarantee it. You have nothing to worry about. And, just, like, I think you should say yes. And then my sister was with me and my dad was with me. So I talked to my sister, and she didn't see any red flags or anything. And my dad was also like, whatever you want. And so I wasn't forced at all. It was my decision. But again, I was so inexperienced and so passive. I hadn't dated a lot. I didn't even know what to ask or what to look for. So I said, okay. And then the very next day in India, everything happens super fast. So we had, they just threw together an engagement party. And I remember in the morning, I woke up, and there was like all these guys, like they were bringing flowers and sweets and jewelry. And I had a breakdown. I started crying, and my dad was with me, and I was like shaking because it was just like happening so fast. And I think intuitively I knew like something feels off, but I dismissed it. I just like, this is already happening. It's fine. I didn't say anything. I was just like, I felt like maybe I'm just nervous. I didn't say I don't want to do this. I wasn't like strong about that.
I'm sure it's hard to identify that when you don't have like a lot of life experiences and relationships, with the opposite sex.
And it's especially because your ex had the same situation. So it's kind of like feels the normal way to go, and you have nothing to compare in, right?
Yeah. So I got engaged, came back to the States, and we were supposed to apply for like a fiance visa. So
Did he come with you?
He couldn't come with me right away. So we applied for like a fiance visa. And again, the uncle had first said that he would do it. And then all of a sudden he was kind of backing off. He was like, anybody could do it. Yeah, the fiance visa. So I thought that was my first like real red flag. Like something feels off. Why is he backing out from doing the paperwork like he said he would? So then my sister stepped up. She said, don't worry, I'll do it. And so she was like, so she did like the affidavit or the whatever the process was. And so during that 90 days, I remember like my fiance, like he would try to call me, and I didn't want to talk to him. He would like call and I wouldn't answer.
That's a bad sign.
I know. Like I was just like, I don't want to talk to him. I didn't know what to talk to him about.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, but
so he came actually pretty quickly then after a few months, and then he was living with his uncle. It was about an hour from my parents' house, and he lived in Sacramento. And so during that time we met a couple times, and that time I started starting to feel like something feels off. I don't really like this person. He seemed kind of guarded with his emotions, and I couldn't really pinpoint what the feeling was or what the reason was, other than me just feeling like something feels off. And so I shared that again with my parents, and they just thought it was just like nerves, like because there was, again, no real reason. And so I, again, just went through with it. And within, I think, 6 months, we got married, like in San Francisco.
Wow.
Yeah. So we got married. And it was fine for the first month. And then after that, he was just really jealous.
Did you move in together? After
We
you
moved
got
in
married?
together. Like we started living in that was the other thing. Like they couldn't figure out a place for us to live. So I remember I was like scrambling to find us an apartment. And so I found one about 15 minutes away from my parents. So we started living together. And after the first month, he just started getting really jealous if I would like go to work or go talk to any of my friends. Like, who are you talking to? Why are you working so late? You don't need to work. I'll take care of us. He couldn't actually find a real job because that's when I figured out he doesn't even speak English,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So usually in India, after, a certain level of college education, all of the lectures are taught in English. And I know this because I would visit and I would like sit in the classes with my cousins. I would go with him to college. And so I just expected him to understand English, and I would speak to him in Punjabi out of respect. So I didn't pick up on it. I didn't expect it. But he had a hard time finding work. And then so my dad actually let him work at one of our gas stations and just said, run the store part, you just run that. And during that time, not only was he like starting to really control my behavior and, not really letting me go places, he started like checking my phone bill and checking every phone number, like whose number is this? What is this? Anyways, like, things like that. And it just got to be more and more. And when you're in it, you don't realize as much that it's that controlling behavior. And it was really interesting, because that, like, why are you not trust me? It was my choice to get married. I wasn't forced into it. And so I kept trying to prove myself, like, don't worry, fine. You can, you want to drive me to work. I won't talk to my friends. So I was complying. I was doing everything I thought I needed to do to keep the peace, because I'm not like a fighter. I don't yell. I don't argue. I grew up in a really like loving household. We don't fight. Even if we do, we just stop talking for a moment. We give each other space, and that's how we deal with anger. But he was just getting a lot more angry and controlling. Started with, again, emotional abuse, and then it turned physical. And at that point, it was actually our neighbors that had picked up on it. I was living at the Travis Air Force Base was close to that, and so a lot of the other residents were in the military, and so they started coming in and checking in, like, is everything okay?
Because they can hear
They
shouting.
could hear, yeah, they could hear like shouting and throwing things like that, and then it was one incident that actually we were outside downstairs one day, and he hit me. I lost consciousness, and the neighbors saw it. He started running. The neighbors actually chased him, and I don't remember this because I blacked out. And so they held him and they called the police, and then that's really when it really kind of ended, because he was sent to jail. It was county at that time, and I said I don't want to press charges. I just want him to leave me alone. I thought maybe we just need space. Again, I was still afraid of the stigma of divorce. I didn't even consider divorce at that time.
Wow.
I was like, maybe we just need space. And so I went back to my parents' house. And
what did your family think about this? What did your parents?
Oh, my
think
mom
about
was livid. She was like, because of her, honestly, I had the confidence that this is not the right person for me, and I need to leave this situation, this marriage.
this? So she supported that. Not only supported it, but championed it. Maybe.
Yes. Like, my mom's very assertive and very like outspoken, and she'll say what's on her mind.
Love that. We love those kind of women.
She's only 5'3", but she's like a firecracker. And my dad's more like chill, like he's like, let's just see what's happening. We're like, okay, well, like, let's think about this and not make any quick decisions. And, again, he's also concerned about the community and, because he's very involved in our, at that time, our temple, our community, and, people like being really involved in what's happening. So I think that was part of it too. But again, he also, I think, was noticing like, like this is not a right situation. I honestly didn't even tell them the details of what happened. I don't think I've told many people. So, it's not something that I really speak about, the details. Those are like really intimate to me. But, during that time, I was working, and then I knew I wanted to, again, be a psychologist. And at first, I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. I was going to go for my doctorate when I was in undergrad. I knew that. But I think I lost the confidence. I was like, I don't think I can be a doctor. Like, who am I? Like I felt like shattered. My soul was shattered. I lost all confidence in myself. So I was like, maybe I can do a master's. Like, that's more attainable. So that's when I went for my master's first. And so I did that, and I was just kind of going to school, working. I was working at Kaiser. I had like an administrative job there, and then just working, going to school, coming home. And it was like this triangle in my life, and I remember feeling really heavy and down. And during that time, I lost a lot of weight. I'm 125 pounds now. I was 99 pounds at that time. And it wasn't an eating disorder, but it was a symptom of my depression. So I lost all appetite. I lost all, like anything that brought me joy before. I didn't feel connected to anybody or anything. I just felt like lost. Like, what is my purpose? And I knew I was going to school, but I didn't feel connected to my classmates at that time. And I was just doing it just because it gave me structure. Mm-hmm. And then, so I was kind of going through that for a few years. What was happening in
your relationship at this time? Like, were you guys still communicating, or we were living apart, or what was?
So he actually stayed in jail, and the DA pressed charges. So they actually got like a warrant out for his arrest, and the bail was like $1 million because of all of the charges, and they had evidence of everything that he had done. And so I didn't want to be involved. I was like, I don't want to do it. But legally in California, if the victim doesn't want to press charges, the DA has to.
Wow. Okay.
And so they did that.
Yeah.
And then they invited me then, after he was already in for a year, they did invite me to be a witness. And at that point, I was like, I need to say something, and so I did go in. My parents went with me to court, and I remember I wrote it out, what I wanted to say to the judge and how I felt about everything that happened. And I felt like I was betrayed, not only by him, but I felt like I was almost betrayed by my own culture. I was like, these are our traditions. And, like I went there with all of these traditions and thinking and I felt like he robbed that of me for a while. Like I couldn't even listen to Indian music for a while. I couldn't. In life, I feel like these things sometimes have to happen in order for you to really rise above that. And so again, I was going through that, during he's in jail. And by then I had filed for a divorce. And so that took a couple of years because he wouldn't sign the papers. And so it took a couple of years for that to finally go through. And then I wasn't really taking care of myself either.
Yeah, you were in a state of depression. You lost all this weight.
I lost all this weight. I started spending time with friends, like family friends that were living in my own community. And that was great for me during that time. Like I was finally heard myself laugh again. I finally remember looking at the sky one day and noticing I haven't looked at the sky in years. I've been walking with my head down for years. And I still remember that. I was driving one day, and the Bay Area is beautiful. There's all these hills, and it's gorgeous. And I was driving one day, and I looked up, and it hit me it's been so long since I looked up. And so during that time, I was having fun, going out with, those friends. They were local. We were just spend time in our own neighborhoods, but we were drinking a lot too. So alcohol was prevalent in our community too. And so I didn't like how I felt anymore. I was so tired of that lifestyle. And then during that time, my brother, Gopal, was competing. And so he was
competing in bodybuilding.
He was competing in bodybuilding. Yeah. And so, sorry.
No, please.
Didn't expect to get emotional.
And we
Thank you for sharing. This is so hard. I've like never heard this much detail about your past, even though I know a little bit about it. And we're going to get into it, but I'm just so grateful for who you are today after overcoming that.
Oh my God, I can say that I love you 10 times more right now because
Just the respect, to see how you are today, having gone through all that. I just can't imagine.
we're talking about, things that it seems that happened 100 years ago and just happened. And to see you, like, I know you right now, but I just should picture you, when you are going through that by yourself. I just wish I had met you before, because you are amazing. You are definitely an inspiration,
Thank you.
So proud of you. And I really believe that you're here today because you have this testimony, to share, because I know how many women is still, going through this kind of relationship, and you were so strong and your mom be part of the process. Just show that as a woman, we are powerful.
Yeah.
We cannot let, people do that to us. We cannot let ourselves do this to us.
Yeah.
Because you are amazing, you're strong, you're smart, you're beautiful.
Yeah.
And just to see you with your power back and be part of this process, because we are together almost 3 years and I saw you growing and glowing on these last 3 years. And it's why everyone thinks she has 20 years. But she only gets better.
Yeah.
So much respect.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell us, so your brother was competing in bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And that was your first, had you been working out before that? I know you.
So he was already going to the gym, and so he got really into it, and then he started competing, and so we went as a family to support him, and we'd go to his shows, and that was the first time I saw bikini competitors, and so that time it wasn't on media, I didn't have Instagram. I don't know if it was around at that time, but that was the first time I saw that division, because before you would think about women's bodybuilding and you're thinking about like that Jim Carrey skit, like in Living Color,
like
so it's like women bodybuilding, steroids, and like huge, and I'm like, so that was the first time I was like, they look feminine and they look like Wonder Woman, they look like superheroes, but still like very like feminine but with muscles, and that was the first time I had exposure to it, but it wasn't a thought like I can do that. I was just enamored. I was impressed, and I was like, whoa, I can't believe this exists. And so he was still competing, and then he had a friend, Ariel, who he was like, who was a coach. He was just getting into like personal training. They worked together at 24 Hour Fitness, and so I became friends with Ariel on Facebook. And so Ariel was posting transformations of his own clients online, and randomly one day I commented, I was like, can you make me look like that? And I kind of said it like not seriously, but kind of just interested. And he was like, come in, and so he actually private messaged me, and he's like, come in next week on this day. So I was like, oh shoot.
He was holding you accountable for that comment.
Yeah.
He's like, I sure can.
Like he was more serious than me.
Right.
And then but I said, okay. So I went in, and he was like a small gym. He just started his own thing at that time too. And so I went in, and he was like kind of just taking an assessment of where I'm at. And then, so he's like, lift your shirt. Let me see your stomach. And I was like so embarrassed. And I was like, oh my God, what? And then, so I did, I was like, okay, he's a trainer, whatever. And again, at that time, I was still pretty passive, pretty shy. I'd never worn a bikini in public ever in my life. Even at home, like we would wear sweats. Like if my dad was around or my brothers, like I was always wearing baggy clothes. I was like that in high school. I was like the chola girl with like like oversized tees and baggy shirts, big earrings, like that was me. So I was not like a girly girl at all.
Yeah.
And so,
and how old were you when this was all transpiring?
So by then I was 31.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
So you've never worn a bikini
No.
at age 31?
no.
Wow.
It actually wasn't until I was 33 the first time I actually did wear a bikini in public.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still surprising us.
Got a lot of making up to do.
Yeah.
Got a lot of making up to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next session.
Yeah. Right. So, okay. So you bared your stomach and you let him get like a comprehensive idea of where you were at
Yeah.
physically. And
Yeah, and he was very matter of fact. Like he was like, I was like making like all these like feeling nervous and shy, but he was just like whatever. So he didn't make me feel uncomfortable at all. And he's looking at me. He's like, okay, you need some shoulders. You need this, and I'm like, shoulders. I just want 6-pack abs. Like I never even looked at.
You're like,
I never even
shoulders. I have
looked.
shoulders. They're right here. What are you
Right.
talking about?
I
Just
never
give me
even
six
looked
pack.
at my shoulders or considered it.
Okay, no. Listen, it's here.
So then, so we made a plan, and I started coming in. It was like 5 days a week. So he made a plan. I would come in. He wrote my diet for me, and then I told my brother, obviously, and my brother was very encouraging. And he was like, "You better do it 100%, otherwise it's a waste of time." Because my brother is also very like direct and matter of fact. He's like, "Are you actually going to do this?" Or
Well, was this in an effort to compete, or did you just
No.
want to like improve your body composition and like just build, just introduce fitness into your life?
I just wanted to, get lean and kind of like look better. So it was more for aesthetics in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then as I started going and we're training together, and the form, like he's telling me, look in the mirror, chin up, shoulders back. Like you're so empowered by just the form. You're not lifting heavy at all. I was like 8-pound dumbbells, I think, in the beginning, because I had never lifted ever. I went to the gym. I did a little bit, I think, in the weight section, but I was so intimidated. I was like that person always in the cardio section, because
Right.
that's where the women were, especially in the community that I was in. So he started training me and I started feeling better. Like I noticed like this mental change shift in within myself. I started feeling more confident, and that's what actually helped me sustain and help me bring out this other side of myself. And that's when it started bringing other changes in my life. I noticed I started being a lot more mindful of my time and who I'm spending my time with. I applied again back to graduate school. So I started my doctorate program during that time, and I started feeling confident again. It was the training, the gym, the weight training specifically, and also his coaching style. He was very much like quiet. He's like Mr. Miyagi. Like he'll just like tell me what to do and just like put his like hands like cross them and like just like watch me and like, you can do this. Like don't. So I never complained, and I never like felt like I can't do it because of the confidence that also he gave me. So I started again. That's where my confidence started to build. And
Yeah.
it was
What we always talk here, right, baby? It's not that you go to the gym, your life gonna change because you're gonna look hot or this and that, gonna have muscle, but it's something inside that makes us appreciate life so much more. I think it's a way to say, God, thank you, another day and half I'm here taking care of my body, because it's where our soul is.
Yeah.
And that brings us like more confident, because that point, everything that we do, we want to do better. We want to, when we face the challenge, I just feel like we are stronger inside out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, and so I was again studying to be a psychologist. So I was teaching these skills as well, about your thinking patterns and your beliefs and, where you have to show up in this way. And, it was going hand in hand. So it was reinforcing the work that I was doing, because even when you're in grad school, you're still doing internships and practicums. So you're working with patients and you're doing groups. And so you're practicing, teaching all of these skills. And then it was great that my personal life was reflective of that. And we all know as psychologists, like self-care is really important, that you are the tool, so you really have to take care of your body. You can't be tired. You can't be not not ready, you have to show up for your patients. At least that's the way I do my work. I'm really invested in my patients. And so I want to make sure that I'm giving my best every time I meet with them, that I'm really there fully. And that can only come if you're taking care of your body. So that's when I made sure I prioritized my sleep. I was, eating really healthy. I was going to the gym. I had a really good self-care regimen. My family didn't live too far away, so I was seeing them every weekend. And so I was again feeling really good again and happy and in my life for the first time after a long time.
Because it's when you definitely found yourself, right? It's when you are now living based in the culture, the dreams that you had in your mind, because you went through and you see the reality and you say like, okay, based on that, I'm gonna create the reality that makes me happy. And I'm gonna mix a little bit my culture that it was the foundations, a lot of years ago, and with the reality now, and I'm gonna become, this strong, powerful woman, and I'm gonna help because by your testimony, by your example, I'm sure that you already had helped a lot of women. And I hope now with the podcast, you can help it even more because it's fantastic.
Yeah.
How did your family support you and your fitness endeavors? Because I know we've talked about it before that it's not very prevalent, that it's just not the female culture in your culture.
Yeah.
It's not prevalent for females to work out or be into fitness.
And especially her, it took it 33 years. First time beginning, she was on the stage.
We're going to get to that part. But I want to know how your family supported that.
They were supportive.
Great.
Yeah, they were because they saw I was getting happy again, and that's all they wanted for me, And so they were really supportive. They were excited that I was in the gym. They were happy that me and my brother were training together. Some days would go to the gym together, and they saw that again I stopped drinking. I stopped staying out with friends. And so my life entirely was changing. And then when I went to grad school, I, started living on my own again. And I was, again, structured, but happy lifestyle. And so they were really, encouraging in that way. But again, it's like you said, you don't see other Indian women competing. And so Ariel started coaching men's physique. And so I was new to the whole bodybuilding thing, and I didn't really know what any of it was. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then they were training some bikini athletes too. So him and it was his girlfriend at the time, but now they're married. They have a family. But so we would kind of laugh about it, oh, maybe, I'll do that one day. But no, I would, I don't think I could ever do that. I just want to look like I can compete.
Minnie, from having never worn a bikini in her life, is maybe contemplating getting not only in a bikini, but on stage to be judged in one.
Yeah. So it took a while, until I felt like it was again, even when I wasn't a decision to compete. After a while, Ariel was just focused on men's physique. And so I went to Houston for a while to the medical center to do my internship. Then that was my third year training with him. And then when I came back, he said his wife, Linda, they had gotten married at that time, is doing all the women now. So they're kind of splitting it where she's doing all the bikini and women athletes. And then he's just focusing on his men's physique just for competition mostly. And because he was progressing in his own career. So at first I was a little resistant. I didn't want to try somebody new, even though I knew her, I was like, I don't know, she doesn't really know my body. And then I was like, okay. And then I told her, I just want to look like I can compete, but I don't want to go on stage.
Which I think is a nice little baby step to take towards,
Yeah. And especially now, I understand totally why it is hard for you to open up for a new person,
Mm-hmm.
And you're already so comfortable with your coach, and then even you know her, it is different. So we have baby steps in all the ways.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, so we started working together, and it was online then at that time. Like, she would just send me my plan and my routine. And then I was just going to the gym on my own. I was living in Redwood City, San Mateo area at that time. So I was just by myself. I would do the training program, and whatever she told me to eat, I was doing that. Did that, and I started seeing the results. I started seeing like, whoa, my body's really changing. And then, after I think I was with her for about 6 or 8 months, and then I was seeing all of her posts of her athletes on stage. And then I was like, well, maybe I can do it. Maybe. So then I brought it up to her, and she was like, pick a show. And she was just like, I was like, what? And it was like the same thing, like when Ariel first told me, like, just come in, it was that same feeling. So it felt like a challenge, but like a good, exciting, scary challenge.
Yes.
So I
Yes,
went
we
on
all
the
like that.
NPC News Online wwebsite, and then I picked this show in Sacramento. It was, and later on that year, it was like 10 weeks away. And then, so, cause she said, pick it within this range. And I was like, that's too soon.
What was the range? Do you remember?
It was like 10 weeks away.
10 weeks. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. 10 or
Okay.
11 weeks away. And so that felt like really soon for me, but she was like, you're ready. You can do this. And so she coached me through that first time that I competed. And that's when I really fell in love with the stage, and this competing journey started for me, where I was like, yes, that was the first time I again felt so confident. And again, I was like in a bikini, and my mom was there, my brother was there. It was just like, but you don't feel, it's not about the physique at all. It's like your soul just feels like it's lit on fire. And that's the feeling that I chase every time I go to the gym now. Every time I'm weight training or doing my cardio, it's a feeling I'm chasing. It's like, where it's like, okay, we're trying to look for certain, aesthetic look. And that's, the overall goal. I think that's what most people see, but they don't understand that it's more like this mental toughness that comes with it. And I loved it. I felt tough for the first time again in so long. It wasn't just like I feel good. And now I started feeling like I'm a badass.
Yeah.
I'm a leader. I can do anything I want. And who cares if no one else has done it? I remember I was like Googling other Indian competitors when I first was training with Ariel, and I saw there was like none. And I saw like, what's her name? India Paulino. India Paulino. She came up. She was like the only thing that came up.
She's not even Indian, right?
So I started just following her. I was like, oh, she looks good, like whatever.
She's a good competitor.
But I wasn't seeing like bikini pro athletes that are Indian. And then it felt also like I get to represent my culture now. Like I'm falling back in love with my culture and my roots. And here's a way to give back and own it and say, if our sick values are that there's no gender discrimination, I'm going to show it. If men can do this, I'm going to do it too. If men can post and they can work out and train in the gym, like, so what? I can do it too.
Be respected by that.
Yeah.
Because it's the other point, when you're talking about bodybuilder, you are not on the stage with your bikini, no. You have been working hard your body, you're there. And people who is judging you or watching you in our community, we are not looking to your body sexually.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so hard for you as a woman to like, listen, so my brother, he's good because he does that, and I'm not good because I'm a woman. No.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you that, yes, I can be a doctor, I can be a bodybuilder, and I can still love myself, respect myself, and have my values, right? And that's amazing.
There are so many misconceptions about the bodybuilding or even fitness community even in the US and our culture, that it's a vanity sport, that it has to do around steroids or PEDs. There's just like so many misconceptions, but I think what I love about your story and what I love about you representing for the Indian woman in your culture is that you can show that it's like so much more, like you show the empowerment behind it, right? You can show like the mental and physical strength that it takes. And I think that that's what it represents when I think we see you, when people see you, is like, and of course, we know that it's much more than just the physique, and it's much more than, the misconceptions about steroids and all that stuff. But I love that you're representing that for your culture. And, I still don't know any other Indian women who compete. I have not come across them myself, but I bet you there's likely somebody Googling interested in the sport, interested in maybe doing that someday, and Googling an Indian athlete.
In India, the bodybuilder is very strong. We have the best show, the best team, and it's just hard to see, the men getting more benefit from that.
Wasn't Mr. Olympia bodybuilder, is he Indian? Last year, 2020?
No, he was Egyptian.
Oh, he
Big
was.
Rami.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Not to
But
confuse
now
the two.
there is a lot more, and now that I've been around the industry a lot more, now I've been following. I've found a lot more pro athletes that are Indian, but again, they're from India, not so many from the States or from California, or that are like me. Like I was born and raised in California, so I'm very American, and I'm also Indian too. So it was hard to find somebody that's just like me that's done it, and so I was like, well, I get, I'm the first doctor in my family. I'm going to be the first female bodybuilder in my family. I get to do whatever I want. Yes. This is my life, and this is my experience. That life is an experience, and I'm tired of giving my power away to other people. If you're with me, great. If you're not, I wish you love, and I don't want any, even to my ex-husband, I wish him peace and happiness always. I never felt resentment towards him. I actually thank him for bringing me here because of that part of my life. I had to go through that in order to really appreciate life again, and in order to appreciate my family again. I felt like I had a second chance at life and freedom. Again, freedom has always been my number one value, and that was taken away from me. And then I realized, well, that was only a few years of this 30 plus years at that time. I'm not going to give him all of my life. That was a blip in my life if I look at it in a time perspective. And so it's really a choice. That's where you think about even just trauma. This was a traumatic experience, but trauma is just trauma. It's a life event. It's really the meaning and the narrative that you create from it. There's not only post-traumatic stress disorder, there's also an area of research called post-traumatic growth, where you're growing from your adversities. And that's exactly what I did. And I was like, I'm going to use this story to give me a platform to be stronger, to be better. And, whether he's watching me today or not on social media, I don't know. A lot of my posts, some of my page is public, and I used to keep everything private, but I'm so tired of hiding. And even as a psychologist, sometimes you think your patients are going to see this but I'm not posting anything bad, and I want people to feel empowered in living in their own body. That this is not a woman's body is not only sexual, like you were saying. It's a body, and I love my body. I love the curves. I love the muscle. I love the femininity and the masculinity of it, and we can be all of it and embrace it. So that's
In yourself, and it's. Oh my God, I'm shocked because I know a lot about you, but you definitely, thank you for opening up so much. Definitely an amazing experience for me to listen to you and to see how it's possible you come from, you're reborn when you were in your 30s, about everything. And I think we always say we don't get old, you get better.
100%.
But we definitely here, you look younger, and you make decisions that, wow, I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, it's because I chose to relieve myself of those burdens, and those burdens are our own thoughts, our own beliefs. And, you get to choose the beliefs that you have. We call them intermediate beliefs, the attitude that you have, the rules you have about life, if then statements. And if you're creating rules that are oppressing you or that are making you feel less than, you have to check in with yourself. That's you, you have to take accountability for your own beliefs. beliefs and your own thoughts, and you can't blame other people. You know, maybe when I was younger, I could say, oh, because I grew up in this culture, it's my parents' fault, it's my community's fault. But no, you know, it's like, I'm an adult today. I'm going to reparent myself if I need to. And I get to choose the way I live my life. And I feel good about the way I'm living my life. I feel like I live with integrity. I don't hurt people. I'm doing the best that I can. I know that there are times I will make mistakes. I am flawed, of course, but we all are, you know, and that's okay. You know, as long as you're learning every single day. And
definitely,
yeah.
I always say that we're learning more when we're going through the hard times, you know, when we're living the happiness, because it's that when you go through or by your mistakes or someone else, you know, make us, you know, hard time or any situation that broken our heart, for example, we grow. When we already talking about this, the shows that I lost or the shows that I had as a bodybuilder was the shows that I most learned about myself, about my body, and just make me better. And we are so scared about to fall. We are so scared about to go through hard times, but we definitely get better.
Mm-hmm.
I love what you said about the post-traumatic growth.
Yeah.
Because I find that so empowering, right? Like what lessons you can take out of it, what you can do differently, like how can it empower you rather than drag you down to this state of depression or making you feel less than.
Exactly.
And sometimes it just is nice to put like a name or a phrase to something so you can use that as like as guidance, you know, or as some sort of tool to help you see things differently, which I thought that was, I don't know, I really like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think that a lot of it is in positive psychology. So if your audience is listening, you know, I would encourage you to look up post-traumatic growth or even positive psychology, because we don't have to always pathologize every situation or every symptom that we're experiencing. Even depression or anxiety, it's not a bad thing. Like everyone's trying to be antidepressant, anti-anxiety, but these are our body's way of signaling us that something needs to change. It's actually a very beautiful thing if you lean into it. Like, what is my body trying to tell me? That I'm feeling anxious right now or that I'm feeling depressed. Your body always has your back, and it's always fighting for you, not against you. You know, our hearts are always beating, we're always breathing, you know, spontaneously. We're not really thinking about these things. So you have to love your body, not just physically, but from the inside, you know, like that's why I choose wisely now how I'm spending my time or how I'm eating. I work out because I love my body, not because I hate it. I'm eating healthy because I want to nourish this body that's always been with me through all of it. And it's always like having my back, you know, so I got to have its back too.
Oh my God. Okay, Dr. Minnie, you're going to be running this podcast from now on. Thank you very much. We will see you next Wednesday. First of all, thank you for being so vulnerable about your life, because I think it's nice for our audience to listen and to not only be inspired, but for people to not feel alone if they're going through something that's very similar. Yeah. So thank you so much for just being as open as you were about that. I know it's hard. It was hard for you to say. It was even hard for us to listen to see one of our dear friends go through such a traumatic experience. It's really difficult, but
yeah. Thank you.
And of course, we're gonna have Dr. Minnie here more times because it's so much knowledge that you have.
We should say that you treat trauma patients.
Yes. So now I have a private practice, and so I specialize in trauma and stress-related disorders, and so PTSD, acute stress disorder, and I'm also a yogi. So I've done a lot of teacher training. So I do workshops around Southern California now in San Diego, but also I've done one in Sedona. So I do workshops where I'm teaching on stress and trauma, and also learning more about what's happening in your brain and your body when you're experiencing these things, and how So yoga has been shown as a treatment form. So we go through like the research and, you know, what's happening when you're doing yoga or you're working out. So I'm also obviously a big advocate for exercise, and a lot more research is being shown to how the benefits of exercise when it comes to managing stress and trauma and depression, anxiety. It's just a cure-all, you know. So I encourage everybody to move your body the way you can, even if you're worried about lifting weights. If a lot of your audience are women, you know, like just think about it as like everybody's more focused on themselves in the gym anyways. And in the beginning, like I was too, I was afraid, like again, when I started working with Linda, she was sending me my plan in like online. So it was the first time I was training on my own. So I would like put my cap on low and like, you know, like just my Beats headphones. Yeah, just like, and not look at anybody. Or sometimes I would think like, these are my bros. They're my brothers. They're not, you know, we're all
in there with the same goal.
We're all training together. These are my bros, you know.
My workout partners that don't know me. I don't know them.
Yeah. So I stopped worrying about them like as looking at me in a judgmental way. And I felt like they were actually my allies here. And so I would start feeling comfortable. Can you spot me? Can you like, you know, like, and I started making friends with people in the gym in that way. And so now that's why it's easier for me now to be in the gym around men. Like, you know, the other day I was at my own gym and it was only men that night in the weight section, but I didn't feel intimidated. I can go pick up the dumbbell. I can walk across and I don't feel that anymore.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Safe, like it's I'm a trainer.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing. I mean, even, you know, in the last 3 years, watching you growing, right, baby, to see like how the transformations, the way that you go through in your prep, you know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. You're intelligent. You are inspirational. You pursue your dreams and are such a great role model for me, us, many people who are watching. So I'm going to put where people can find you. We'll put your Instagram handle up. But I also just want to give a little plug because I love this so much for your Ask Dr. Minnie on Instagram because I just think that's phenomenal. And I have yet to submit a question myself, but I love to read other people's questions and your response to them. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah. So on Instagram, it's drminnie.co. And so on Wednesdays, I invite people to share a question and I post it live on my stories on Wednesdays. So people can ask about anything related to psychology, exercising, yoga, bodybuilding, anything that, you know, I feel like I can share a little bit on. And so people talk about relationships, boundaries, whatever the questions you have, you can message me and then I will post my response to it on Wednesdays live on my story.
And I love it because the questions are so relatable because they're coming from just, you know, your general audience. And so are your responses. It's like, I feel like every time I read your response, I can actually, it's, you know, tactile information, feedback, direction I can turn around and use into my life, even if the question doesn't directly relate to me, but I love it. I'm a big fan of it. So we'll post that Instagram handle as well, or the email.
Definitely.
We'll link it below so people know where and how to access you if they're interested in that.
I love that. Yeah. Some questions this way.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was amazing.
I know. Yeah. Thank you so much. I don't know how long we went, maybe long, but I know that this was so valuable. I think we could sit talking forever. And thank you for coming back in advance because we will be doing a session with you where we have your expertise around particularly around eating disorders, like we'll talk about, but we'd love to have you back more in the future about other topics that are so relevant to our community around health and fitness.
Yes.
Again, you are a living, walking example of how to incorporate that and integrate that into your life in order to empower you and make you stronger from the inside out. So love your expertise. Love you. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much, you know, again, for creating this platform for all of us, you know, to share our stories. I think community is so important. And a lot of times we are lonely and we're feeling so isolated in our experience. And sometimes, like, you know, even in my own life, when I was making changes about who do I include in my life, who do I not, I was listening to podcasts and I would pretend the host, like, that's one of my friends. That's one of my 5. You know, they say you're the best. You're
the sum of the 5 people you spend the most
yeah,
time
you're
with.
the average of the 5. And so sometimes you don't have those 5 people. So where do you go? You go to podcasts. And so this is a community that you guys are creating. And I'm so, honored that you invited me to be here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, we hope a community is so important for all the reasons that you said. So that's what Anna and I strive to do, so people don't feel like they're alone, because like you said, it is easy, especially in today's society where we're all on social media.
Wow. Today was so amazing.
Yes. Thank you.
you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you everybody for listening. Please
Subscribe, like, and share.
like and subscribe. Share this episode with somebody you think would get some value from it too. Again, Minnie, thank you for being such a wonderful guest on our show. We look forward to having you back as Dr. Minnie. And any questions, comments you guys have below, please feel free to ask. And thank you for tuning in. And we'll talk to you next time on the next episode of Behind the Body.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.